A century ago, Will Rogers was the biggest celebrity of his generation. Few people today know who he was, and fewer still remember his untimely death in August of 1935. As the star of stage, silver screen, radio, and print, his homespun humor made him a friend to every American and leaders around the world. In 1928, Life magazine nominated him as the presidential candidate for the Anti-Bunk Party. Accepting the nomination, his first campaign promise was that if he were elected, he would immediately resign. That year, he also became the only person in history to speak at both the Republican and Democratic conventions in the same year. This year, given the fevered pitch our battle of nitwits has brought us to, I think it's important to remind this generation about the jokes he made about politics 100 years ago, and maybe question whether we'd like to amend our mentality in the century to come.
Now, there's something about a Republican, and you can only stand them just so long. And on the other hand, there's something about a Democrat that you can't stand him quite that long.
On my birthday in 2017, my gift was finding out that I'd been cast to portray him in the Players Theater production of the Will Rogers Follies.
And like I always say, all I know is what I read in the papers.
I read a lot of what he wrote that didn't make it to the Broadway show and crafted my own one-man show, Will Rogers Revived, which won the Humorist Award at the 2018 Sarasolo Festival.
But we do have to ask ourselves, if pro is the opposite of con, what's the opposite of Congress?
The latest incarnation of my performance is Get the Bunk Out, the wit and wisdom of Will Rogers fused with original songs and poetry. I want to take this show on tour, and although Will was a big aviation advocate, I prefer wheels on the ground. In late August, I'll be riding my motorcycle from my home in Sarasota, Florida, to Washington, D.C. to visit his statue in the Capitol. I will then ride directly across the country visiting the Will Rogers Theater in Illinois and Will Rogers Shrine of the Sun in Colorado Springs. Once I get to the other coast, I'll take the Pacific Coast Highway to Los Angeles, visiting his home in Pacific Palisades, his park in Beverly Hills, the last theater he performed at in San Bernardino, and his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Then I'll ride back across the country to his birthplace in Oklahoma in order to celebrate his birthday on November 4th at the Will Rogers Memorial Museum. If you'd like to book a performance of Get the Bunk Out or want more information, go to www.stevemc.xyz. If you want to follow the journey, find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube at Steve McAlphabet.